Welcome to the Via Stoica Podcast. I'm Benny, and join me as we explore a Stoic way of life, one step at a time. The inspiration for this episode came to me yesterday, the day before recording this episode, as I set out on my walk. One of my favorite walks here in Granada, walking up the Albaicin, going to Plaza San Nicolas, looking over the Sierra Nevada mountains, going back down, having a read, and coming back home. I was very excited for it, and I felt like this is going to be a great day. The weather was amazing, and I decided to wear my new white hat because I felt like this is going to be great. I set out 5-10 minutes into the walk, just barely left home, and I felt something fall on my head. And I couldn't really place it. I was like, it's probably nothing. And I was like, let's have a look, right? Let's have a look. This was my new white hat. I don't want it to be dirty. And then I looked, and lo and behold, right at the back, a bird poop fell right on my head. You know, the chances of that happening, I was just walking out in the open, and right in the middle, the bird poo fell. My first reaction was like, oh no, damn, this is my new hat. I just wore it for the first time out. And I felt bad, But this is also where it showed me how my Stoic practices have improved my reaction, because instantly I thought, I was like, isn't it good luck, for a bird poo to fall on your head? And second thought was like, what if it hadn't fallen on my head? Well, what if I just wore, nothing, and it would have been in my hair? It would have been far more difficult to get out. Then I took out a tissue, cleaned it off of my head. And I just started thinking, maybe I can let it dry. Maybe let's see if I can, find a way to clean it. Should I go home? No, it's not necessary. And then I found a little fountain, and luckily, the poo was white and my hat is white. So it was kind of matching, but I found this little water fountain. I cleaned it right off. And yeah, it was clean. It was, it was good. And the hat was a little bit wet, so it was cooling my head as well. So all in all, this is, it wasn't really a bad thing, right? I could have worn my black hat. I have another hat that is black, and it would have made a far bigger impact, far bigger smudge on it. But now, yeah, it was all pretty clean and ready to go. And but it did show me that, I had this first reaction, and now it changed really quickly into something not as bad, right? Maybe even not necessarily positive, but something that I could work with. Thinking about solutions, thinking about what do I need to do right now, and how bad is this really? While before, I remember, like, if this would have happened to me years ago, this would have stayed stuck in my head for a long time. It would have probably ruined my entire walk. Maybe I would have gone home, and I don't know, but it would have had a completely different outcome to the rest of the day. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, is like, how can Stoic philosophy really help us change these bad moments around? I like to talk about the pause. I think that that's one of the biggest tools that we can use to really help us prevent this impulsive reaction to take a hold and move us in this negative spiral, or maybe even destructive mode. And literally here, there was, the moment between the hit on my head and my reaction. Well, my instant impulsive reaction was still there, right? All these thoughts go through your head. But then I paused a little bit, and I looked, and I was like, okay, no one died here. It's a hat, all these things. But there was, the gap between that initial thought and the reaction was narrowed down, right? I could instantly change my mind. And this is because of practice. This is not something that comes like, I'm just going to pause. No, this is just something that we need to practice, to take a deep breath. I've used that many times, and it does really help. And you can narrow that, right? You can then make sure that that instant reaction isn't dragged along into the rest of your day or your decision making, your actions. And it's up to you to apply that pause. It's up to you to do it, but it can help, and it can even turn these things. Look, now I'm talking about it, and it's giving me great topic to talk about. And this isn't something about, making it super positive, or, this or being resignated with it. Is like, no, this is just something that happened, right? I looked at the facts. I have a white hat, a white poo fell on it. What can I do? Not make it any bigger, not make it any more catastrophic. And see, if the hat is irreparably damaged, it's just a thing, right? Yes, it's something that I like. It's something that I use, but I can still get a new hat, right? So that's something that I used to do before, and maybe something that you used to do as well, to make it bigger. But let's just stay with the facts, and let's just keep the rest of our judgments out there and look for a solution. And these things happen, right? And sometimes they happen more on one day than on others. I had another example for a few days ago where things went kind of well, and then I pressed one link on an email without really thinking about it, and it felt like a scam, and it ended up being like a scam, and I had to cancel some cards and things. And this is just some things that happen, right? But even before, I would have, that would have thrown me off completely. And now we're just like, okay, what do I have to do? How bad is it? You know, and I just take action. But these things can happen maybe when you wake up in the morning and you have a full day planned out, you have everything set for it, what you wanted to do. And that, first you have to do this, then this, all of it is sequenced as you would have liked. And then you get out of bed and no hot water, or you ran out of food, and then the bad things start lining up, right? Because you're falling behind. All the things that you had in mind are slowly starting to unravel, and then you classify this as a bad day. And that's exactly what the Stoics talk about, that judgment, right? That classification is like, now this entire day is bad, or now this is what is happening is bad. But what you're really doing here is you're just fighting reality, right? You're just fighting the facts that are in front of you. And the reason that they are bad is because they are not what you had hoped, right? They're not what you had planned, but maybe there was an oversight, or maybe just things fell apart. Who knows? But by adding that judgment, you are then setting yourself up for a dramatic day, right? Your mind is going into the negative zone. You feel that everything is working against you. And then that's the only thing that you're going to be focusing on. Well, you could still, even this was a bad event or something that you didn't plan or something that you didn't want to happen, that doesn't mean that the rest of the things, are going to happen the same. And maybe this is actually a good thing. But the real suffering is fighting that reality, right? Is fighting Lady Fortune. We can see that in Seneca's letters. He talks about it a lot, right? And in a sense of like, there's no way of fighting her, because she does whatever she needs to do, right? Cause and effect. That's all what the Stoics talk about. And then it compounds, right? It feels like you're falling behind, trying to catch up. But again, take a pause. Just take a check and see, where are you right now? What is the rest of your plans? What do you need to do? What can you do? Maybe you need to skip a few things. Maybe you need to postpone something or put something forward. Try to be flexible as it comes, because that's really how we can make our lives a little bit easier. If we can be flexible, if we can adapt to whatever comes our way. And the harder you chase that original plan, the worse this day is going to be. Because when we look at it, a bad day is fundamentally a collision between expectation and what actually is happening. And then we're really trying to just put all our energy in restoring what we had in mind, trying to mold fate to our desires. That's not going to happen. And it's just going to get you more frustrated. So just take a step back, let the poo fall on your head, see where you can clean it off, see what's really happening, and keep walking. And the Stoics, and especially when we read Epictetus, in that handbook that Arian wrote, the first entry is like, what is up to us and what isn't up to us. Up to me is how I approach things, right? It's not my desire or my aversion of like, I don't want poo to fall on my head. That's not what I want, obviously, but it's not under my control. It could have fallen on my shoulder. It could have fallen right next to me, but it fell right on my head. Well, that's what it is. And that's what the Stoics tell us. That's not up to me. What is up to me is, how do I deal with it? I can laugh about it. I can even create a full episode on it here on the Via Stoica podcast. But that's what it is. And this is where I feel that a lot of people stay stuck. They are trying to fight what isn't theirs. They're still trying to fight that flat tire. They're still trying to fight that not running water. Well, that's already there. That's the fact. And what you need to work on is, first, stop fighting it, accept it for what it is, and see what you need to do. and see how to adjust your plans. That's really how you gain back control. That's really how you will turn this bad day around into something more positive. And not maybe not even positive, but just neutral. Just something where you can still do things and don't get paralyzed by all of this fatalic mindset that you have regarding all the events that are happening to you. Because that plan that you made, that list that you carved out this morning, that doesn't exist anymore. Why? Because, life changed. The world around you is different. That list, maybe some things do happen, maybe sometimes don't. Some things don't. That's okay. That's how we need to learn and live around it. And that adjustment, that way of adapting, that's actually where your agency lies. That's actually what we should be focusing on. And the adjustment doesn't mean that everything is fine, right? Bad things happen to us. Well, we give it the label of bad things, but things happen to us that have an impact on us in a negative way, an emotional way, that make us angry, make us feel sad, right? They don't just go away like this. We can just express that, that just kind of get that reaction out there in a way that isn't harmful for us or for anyone else. Maybe that's your pause. Again, that's something that we've got to learn and try to investigate. How do I pause? What works for me? What is effective? How to make it shorter and put it close to the trigger moment. But that's really something that's there. We're going to blush, we're going to sweat, we're going to maybe shake. Those are our physiological responses that we can't control. But then again, that's where we come in. That's where we've got to say, wait a minute, what can I do here? What is the options? And sometimes that is even the best way to help us get through this, to focus on the action right here, right now. Because if we just stay stuck and if we then start extrapolating what this event really meant and how it can then progress into something worse, that's where our mind does plays tricks on us and our anxiety grows, our worries grows. But if we just focus on what our actions are required of right now, then we can make it a lot easier. We can think about, what is my role here? What am I supposed to do here? I was going on a walk. I wanted to go for a walk, and that's what I ended up doing. There was a little obstacle, and I went through it, and that's it. I had a lovely rest of the walk. But we've got to focus on that moment, on what I'm actually supposed to be doing here. What is your role? What is the right action? What am I not supposed to be doing? So when we think about a bad day or bad events like the bird pooing on my head, or think about what happened to you maybe yesterday, maybe even today, or maybe a week ago that really threw you off. Sit back, maybe write a little bit down. It's like, how could I have responded in a better way? And what was really this bad? Have I already forgotten about it, or is it still lingering on? And then try to close it down and say, okay, this is now, I've got this moment ahead of me, and this is what I've got to, deal with. And that's why that pause is so essential to learn. Something that I keep hammering on, and why we have the newsletter called The Pause. And if you haven't subscribed, you can go to viastoica.com, subscribe there, and try to use it maybe as some inspiration. It gets easier with practice, and it's not because suddenly life becomes easier or better or rosier. No, that's all the same. It's how you deal with it. And you can still, and you can then see that it becomes a little bit easier for you, a little bit easier to handle, right? And that your actions will become more focused on what's happening around you. So stop chasing the day that you have planned and start working with the day that you have, what is being presented to you. And next time, something will happen, like bird pooing on your head. Just, wash your head, put it back on, and keep walking.